Hey, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? Yana,
Yeah.
appreciate
Hello.
it. Elizabeth,
Hello.
thanks for being here. JJ, thanks for being here. Appreciate y'all.
How's it
Tatiana,
going, guys?
thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
No, of
Thank
course,
you.
of course. Hey, hey. So we just letting the room build a little bit, and then we're gonna get into it. Man, this is gonna be a beautiful event. Appreciate you guys.
Yes, I appreciate the space that you created for us. I'm super excited to be here and meet some other survivors. So yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. This is gonna be a great one. I already know. Mhm. Swag, how you feeling about this event? Jerry, thank you for coming, brother.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
you.
telling me about it, man. It's an important topic
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes, yes, it is. AK, how you
Um.
doing?
Oh, okay. I thought you
I'm
were going
good. I'm
to
good.
that.
We're just letting the room build, trying to get everybody in here because I know Ian had his room open and he was directing people to come over here. So I know he's on his way.
Yeah. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me good enough?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. Good. 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 Yeah. I mean, this is this is important, man. I always speak about different topics and conversations, and you know, I try to get out as much information as I can from the experiences that I've witnessed or been through myself. And I think that, having spaces where you allow people to share, you allow people to be able to come and just be a part, knowing that in that space they're safe, in that space they can share, and it's a family, and it's people that actually care about that particular cause. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not going to care. We get it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not going to, find certain topics as interesting as certain other ones. But just know that when you get that little bit of information, when you're able to be a part of some of them stories, believe me, the outcome of the answers, the outcome of some of the things that you want to do, the outcome of you want to actually come out and say certain things. Believe me, that confidence comes. You know what I'm saying? So I just appreciate you, T Rose, for allowing us here at Trolls Nation to be
Call.
able to have this space and talk about national slavery and human trafficking awareness. So this is definitely needed.
Oh yeah, no, listen, I appreciate you guys, man, and I also want to give my appreciation to Tatiana for also helping me putting the thought process together. She mentioned it to me, and I already had the idea, but it was just something that it just showed me that it needs to happen. Like this needs to happen. I also want to shout out Ion for coming to the room. Ion, thank you so much, brother, for being a part of this. Man, my gratitude and my appreciation to you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Can I introduce myself now, or how are we working out? Or did we start now?
Yeah, no, 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 absolutely. Go ahead, do your thing.
All right, so y'all, my name is INX. I just want to say thank you, T Rolls, for having this conversation. And thank you for the survivors who came through because this is a conversation that is long overdue. And I'm glad that we all got together, and just came to have this discussion because wow, wow, wow. My name's INX. A lot of y'all know me from Clubhouse. I host a Black woman empowerment group called the Exoticals, which is um a group on here where we do have a lot of conversations about human sex trafficking, and human trafficking, and a lot of things that have been going on in Atlanta. I met a lot of survivors, and the fact that there's this many and we're not speaking about it is super, super crazy to me. So I was waiting for something like this, and maybe I should have started it, but I'm glad that we're having it in this format. And I want to thank you, T Rose. I'm gonna pass it back to you.
Oh yeah, man, appreciate it, appreciate it. So I mean, we can actually go ahead and get started. Swag, you want to go ahead and reset the room, and I'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey man, welcome to Trolls Nation, Trolls Nation, Trolls Nation, man. We are in the building, man. We have some of the most interesting topics talked about some of the most of the time on here on Clubhouse, man. And we just love being able to share topics, conversations here with y'all, man. Appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all troll up to the top, hit that green casa, become a part of the family, become a VIP member, be a part of the conversation, be a part of the stage, be a part of the audience. Just be a part. That's all you got to do. Make sure you follow the moderators on stage. Make sure you follow the audience because there's somebody sitting next to you that can possibly help you, connect you, giving you some more information. We love everybody here. Thank you so much for having this safe space. You are now tuned in to Trolls Nation. T Rose, back to you.
Oh yeah, thank you, Swag. Welcome everybody to Trolls Nation, and thank you to all the warriors, the survivors, the co-hosts for coming and being a part of this. Thank you to the audience for being here as well. If you guys didn't know, this month is National Slavery and Human Trafficking Awareness. I feel like this is well overdue. Like Anya said, this is most overdue. This is the most needed. It's so much negative going on in Clubhouse around the world, man, and I feel like something positive needs to happen, and I'm glad it happened today. So we're here to um to let the warriors, I'm gonna say warriors, and you know that's known as survivors, tell their story, and we're gonna give you guys information and you know and teach you how things like this can be prevented. So before we get into it, I'm gonna let people introduce themselves. So Yanale, I'm gonna start with you, and then we're gonna go down the line. If you want to
Oh,
introduce yourself, I'm sorry, if you want to introduce yourself and tell them about your platform as well.
okay. Hi, I'm Yana Lynn. I am a woman warrior. Survivors, I really don't like the word, but people will know that word more than woman warrior. I also have the organization called Survivors Link Up. I provide transitional houses. I have 3 houses that are being worked on right now to open up, praying everything goes right in March. I am a survivor. I can just use that word of human trafficking inside of the foster care system. I've been talking about this since 2013. So I do real life work off of this app that I've been doing for years. But we do know that conversation is a whole nother conversation. But definitely, I'm here for to support other survivors and speak about another side of human trafficking that is not talked about as well, which is the foster care system, because that's my experience from 2 years old and I aged out at 23. But I pushed through my circumstances and created change, and I'm showing it in my actions as of today. Thank you so much for having me here. This is
Thank you.
Jonalyn. I'm done speaking.
Oh, that was dope. Thank you so much, Yanale. Elizabeth, I'm gonna push it to you if you want to introduce yourself and let people know about your platform before we get started.
Yes, thank you for having me here. My name is Elizabeth Quiros, and I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. I'm also a survivor of a broken foster care system and being incarcerated and addiction. And so for me to be here today is a miracle. For all of us to be here today is a miracle. To be able to use our pain for purpose, turn our trauma into triumph, to be able to share and give hope to others and let people know that they too can overcome their past and their barriers and whatever's holding them back. So what I'm doing today with my story, with my platforms, just with my passion to advocate and bring awareness around this is me and my partner, Lisa McQuaid. We're both co-founders of Redemption House of the Bay Area, which is a nonprofit here in Sonoma County. And our long-term goal is to open a safe house and help trafficking victims get off the streets and rehabilitate and become productive members of society, and eventually like take their power back and give back to the community if they choose to, and hopefully expand. And we want to expand to different counties. I have a higher power. His name is God. I believe in him. I have total faith that he's going to expand this mission and vision that we are working on. And I'm currently an upcoming author. I have my memoir coming out next month. So I'm super excited to see how many lives is going to be transformed through that book. And I also received a governor's pardon from Governor Jerry Brown. I believe I'm the first woman in Sonoma County to receive that. So that just gives hope to others and let people know, hey, it doesn't matter what our past and what we've been through. Like, we're here today, we're doing something different, and then there's hope for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. Tatiana, I'm gonna pass it to you if you want to introduce yourself and the platform.
Yes, thank you so much for collaborating and creating this space. My name is Tatiana Yoguez. I am a survivor of sex trafficking. I was trafficked at the age of 12, kidnapped and trafficked at the age of 12 with two of my best friends. And some of the things that I'm doing now is I'm a survivor mentor to youth who have either been trafficked or at risk to be trafficked. Me and my friend Nicole, who is actually on stage as well, on the other side of IM, we wrote a book called Life Outside the Game, a sex trafficking testimony, which was very healing. Um, we educate law enforcement, doctors, school officials. It's really it's really my life's work to educate and talk about these hard topics that people don't want to address. Um, so my name is Tatiana, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. Nicole, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and your platform as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole McCall. I am a survivor of human trafficking. Like Tatiana said, we were trafficked first when I was 13 years old, and that happening to us when we were very young. That landed me in very, I guess, unfortunate circumstances and made very difficult life decisions after that. And so I continued to be trafficked until I was about 21 years old. And so now, as far as work, doing trainings with the law enforcement. I'm training their new recruits on how to identify trafficked victims. And so that's mostly like where my focus is on trainings in the community.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Sophia, thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for coming. Can you introduce yourself and a platform you have as well?
Yeah, my name is Sophie Jones, and gosh, I'm just so inspired by all the women that have already spoken up. So I was trafficked a little bit later in my story, and yeah, just went through that experience. And when I came home from that experience, I just threw myself into different mentors and different businesses and went on to build businesses. And so today I help women from all walks of life really understand their potential, really understand their ability. I think that, really help them with their self-worth and self-esteem. I'm also a breathwork healer, so that when you're in that environment and when you make money, you come out of that environment and learning how to make money on your own terms. But maybe even not all that, I tell people, not all that happens in that is negative, right? And so learning how to turn my struggle and teach other women about self-worth and value, but also teach them how to build successful businesses is where my passion has gone to. And then my platform, obviously, you can find me on Instagram at sophie.jones.right.
All right. T Rose is probably having a little bit of audio.
No, no,
You
I'm
good?
sorry.
You
I'm
good?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
All
I'm
right. You
sorry.
good?
I was
All
actually
right.
talking on pause. I'm sorry. JJ, how you doing, brother? If you can introduce yourself as well in your platform, please.
Absolutely. Hey guys, just so honored to be on the stage with all these brave people, brave women. My name's JJ. I was exposed to child trafficking and human trafficking back when I was 13, 14 years old in the Philippines for the first time when I was doing some basically vacation with my family. I have Filipino, Hawaiian, Spanish mixed descent, and I worked on basically the first policy in Canada to change the mandatory minimums from 5 years from trafficking a human back in 2006. So I basically devoted my whole undergrad and master's in anti-human trafficking work. I worked for the UN. I've worked in the last three World Cups and Olympics. We work on mobilizing teams when there's big sporting events. How do we cooperate with women's groups and local groups to empower them? And also we design safe houses and whatnot. So worked on those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, we're doing stuff here locally, but also globally, and worked on 6 continents. But I kind of have that passion for policy and making that sure that it reflects accurately on the ground roots, and it really does help the women, the children, and increasingly men who are in modern slavery. But so honored to be here. Love what you're doing in this room, guys and ladies. It's just an honor. So thanks so much.
Definitely appreciate it. Before we actually get into it, I just want to give you guys just a little background on the National Slavery and Human Trafficking riots on January. Um, and just a little statistics. So, January was first declared as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month in 2010. Since then, January has been the time to acknowledge those experiencing enslavement and those who have escaped. Although slavery is commonly thought to be a thing of the past, human traffickers generate hundreds of billions of dollars in profit by trapping millions of people in horrific situations around the world, including here in the United States. Traffickers use violence, threats, deception, debt bondage, and other manipulative tactics to form people to force people to engage in commercial sex or to provide labor or service against their will. I know sex trafficking or human trafficking is big around every state, but there are 10 states with the highest rate for human trafficking. First being Nevada, second being Mississippi, third being Florida, fourth being Georgia, then Ohio, Delaware, California, Missouri, Michigan, and Texas. So that it's definitely a big deal. I know it's big here in Wisconsin as well, where I live. So, without further ado, I will pass it to Yanalyn if you want to just tell people about your story.
Um, I'll summarize it. Well, pretty much, I was a state ward by the time I was 2 years old, and been in over 50 homes alone. Probably more than that, but that's just the number that I'm saying. Um, and I was in it from two to I aged out at 23. I didn't have parents. My parents were refugees. So I grew in the system without having another home to go to that was biological families. So I moved around, um, experienced human trafficking inside that system. It does happen. Sex trafficking. I mean, you name it. I mean, abuse. I mean, locked refrigerators, locked doors, chains, chained to beds. I mean, it happens and it's serious, especially in that foster care system, because children are a commodity. And foster care is within the states and all over. They're just called orphanages in other countries, but it's still the same thing. Um, so I grew up with that. I also had a child very young and pushed through everything. When I got out, I had to figure out life because I didn't have no one to turn to. You're just thrown out on the street like a trash bag, pretty much, with no bag, just a trash bag. So I had to figure it out. So I got into some things, the entertainment business for a while, and did that for a little time. Then I started focusing on myself because I had to figure out what I liked, what love was. To like people in general, right? Man or woman, because the experience was from both sides, women and men. It's just not from men. And so I had to figure out myself. So I worked on self when I got tired. So after that, I continued to be on that path of change. And then I started my first business when I was homeless, which was 2015. Their resource company it was. And I felt with resources were not available to me nor anybody that I supported could figure it out as well. Because resources are pick and choose, they pick and choose who they give what to. And so I created a business on resources because I had to learn them myself and what worked and what didn't work. So pretty much I was like my own investigator because I would call different organizations. If they didn't work, they had a lot of hell to pay. um, and I had to know why. So I started that as well. After a while, I had to sit back and think about it because I'm like, I'm giving all these resources and telling people how to get these tools and utilize them for themselves and their families. But damn, they go back to what they know. And I'm dealing with a lot of kids that aged out of the foster care that are homeless and don't have anywhere to go. And so then after a while, here I am today. I have Survivors Link Up. I was able to get 3 houses to be able to provide housing for people that have aged out of the foster care system, that have dealt with human trafficking, sex trafficking, abuse, you name it, to be able to have a place to call home and start somewhere. And to be able to receive those tools that work for them, and then eventually move on out and go into the real world and utilize those tools. So that's just to summarize, but that's a whole nother long conversation. But like I said, I'm appreciative of being here, and I'm Yanalyn, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you so much, Yana Lynn. Elizabeth, if you won't mind just sharing some of your story as well, please.
Yes. Um, so I want to like piggyback on what Yonalyn said about the foster care system. So there is abuse going on in the foster care system because that's a little bit of my story. So I'll get to that. Um, so my abuse started at the age of 4. My I grew up in a family of gang members, alcoholics, addicts, and ex-felons that, they've done a lot of time in prison. And so that's the type of family I come from. So it's kind of like a generational cycle. Um, so I'm happy that I'm here today and I was able to break that cycle. Like it's not going to get to my kids. And so basically at the age of 4, I was physically abused by my grandmother. That's where my physical abuse started. And then I was also sexually abused when I was with my grandmother. And eventually I ended up going with my mother, and she was a single parent. My dad wasn't in my life like that. So my mom continued the physical abuse. And so, and like I said, she was just repeating that cycle because that's what my family knew. They knew violence. And so she was repeating that cycle. And so, and that helps me to be able to look at it from a forgiving perspective, to help me to forgive, the people that hurt me in the past, because it's something they learned as they grew up. And so I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying this is what helps me to forgive it. And so, because of the abuse I have endured growing up, I became a cutter. So I started cutting my arms and became very suicidal. And so I didn't have any other way to cope. And I remember going to school and getting beat up and bullied at school because I came from low income housing, from poverty. And so none of the teachers seen the signs. Nobody seen the signs of what was happening with me, why I was so emotional all the time, why I was crying, and I was getting beat up all the time, bullied, and nobody asked questions. And that's what I do when I share my story and I do presentations. I always want to highlight like the red flags, the signs, like what to look out for when you see a children or a child or an adolescent going through this stuff, what to look out for, and ask questions, always get involved. And so at the age of 14, I was raped by an older man, and his friend was driving the car. But I didn't know about good touches, bad touches. I didn't know about consent. I didn't know about any of that because that's not the type of household I was in. And I didn't learn any of this when I was in school. And so I don't know what was happening to me. And so another situation where me and my mom got into a huge fight, and she ended up pouring chemicals all over my body and my mouth. And because of the chemicals, got on my skin and burned my skin, um, I ended up having the courage to call the police. And I felt like if I called the police, they were going to have my back. And so I ran downstairs, because we were in the bathroom when this happened. I picked up the phone and I called the police, and I was confident. I told her, I said, "You're going to jail for a long time because of what you just did." And I just, like I said, I had the courage to finally fight for myself, because I was 14 and I had all these years of physical abuse. And so I called law enforcement. They came, but all they did was refer us to a social worker. They didn't arrest her. They didn't take me out of the scene. They left me there. So when I watched them walk out, I felt, they left me with my abuser. I felt like I couldn't trust anybody. I couldn't trust law enforcement. I couldn't trust the school system, nobody. And so eventually I was placed in the foster care system because of what had happened. And the home they placed me in was abusive as well. And like Yonalyn was saying, they put padlocks on the fridge. That's they only fed us when they wanted to feed us. There was a mentally ill child I was living with, and the way for him to voice stuff is he would scream or cry. He couldn't use words, and so I guess that would irritate the parents. They were old school parents, so they would take him in the room and beat him, and I would hear this. And so it's like I was being re-traumatized all over again. I'm supposed to be safe in the foster care system, and I wasn't. So I completely ran away, and because of my trauma being in a household, I didn't have my dad around. Because of the sexual abuse I experienced and like I said, my physical abuse, I became high risk for trafficking. So I ended up going to my dad's. I did. And when I went to my dad's, um, he was a drunk. He wasn't able to meet my needs. He wasn't able to be there and help me go through what I was going through. And so I ended up meeting an older man, and he came in a boyfriend version, and we call that Romeo Pimpin'. And he came and told me I was beautiful, and he swooped me off my feet and just basically gave me everything that an adolescent that has a lot of traumatic experiences wants, right? And he sold me a dream, basically. And so I went with him. I ran away with this man, thinking that my life was going to change, and I was going to find my happiness within him. And that's not true. It's a lie. So eventually, he was part of a prison gang. This was in the Bay Area. We were in San Francisco. He was part of a prison gang, and all his homies were downtown with him. And he started taking me to 16th and Mission and 17th and Cap and 20th and Shotwell. So he used to take me in those areas in San Francisco. And that's where he started to have me be like a mule, kind of like a drug mule. I was holding on to drugs in my mouth and other areas of my body. And he was starting to train me. I was 16 at this time, started to, hold on to drugs. And then he started showing me how to sell drugs as well. And so there was times where because he had his homies all around us, I'm surrounded by men, older men, old men that are in their 40s, right? And he was 27, but they were older men that was downtown with us, and they knew what was happening. And every time I looked up to walk, like maybe just need to walk because I don't want to trip over nobody, he would backhand me and slap me and bust my nose in front of everybody and make me look down. So he trained me for a very long time to look on the floor. So when I would have different probation officers or parole officers over the years, I always looked on the floor because I couldn't make eye contact with men. Because if I did that, that meant that man tried to take me away, or like take me away from whoever I was with, or undress me with their eyes. It was kind of like I was somebody's property. So I couldn't look in them in the eyes. I had to look on the floor. So this is a huge red flag. So when I speak to probation officers or police officers or just educating nonprofits or stakeholders or whatever, I always say, hey, when you come across an individual you're working with, and this is like the red flags, like if they're not making eye contact with you, that's a red flag for sure. So but because of this grooming process, I call it the grooming process, he eventually got arrested, and he sent an older woman to me. So this woman came to me, and she basically was part of the same gang as he was, and she told me I needed to make money. And so eventually, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go sleep with purchasers. I didn't want to do that. But that's what she told me I had to do because it was part of the streets. So she took me out to 17th Cap and 20th Shotwell, the same areas that he had me on, and was selling me to cars. And selling me to multiple men. And so this is not something a child wants to do, but this is what happened to me. And I was surviving at this point. I wasn't going to go back to my mom's and be abused again or go back to the foster care system. So it's kind of like I had nowhere to go. I had no choice, right? I was surviving. And so eventually he ended up getting out. And when he got out, I told him what happened. And he played the whole role, and he manipulated me and told me, well, if you did it for her, you'll do it for me. Show me how much you love me. And you're telling that to somebody that's broken. So when I was like, you know what? I want to show you my loyalty. I want love too. I want to be loved. So yes, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So I was kind of like the ride or die, right? Because I wanted to be loved. And he was preying on that vulnerability. So eventually, he basically took me back out there and was selling me to multiple cars and multiple like low income apartments. And this abuse this trafficking kept happening. I didn't know I was being trafficked. I honestly thought trafficking was being brought from one country to another. But that's like one form of trafficking. There's so many different versions of trafficking, and I'm just really happy that we're all here today to talk about this topic and just kind of bring awareness around it. So, but at that time, I didn't know what was happening to me. So when I was under him, eventually he hooked me on meth. So I was hooked on meth for about 12 years, and being under him as well, I ended up being arrested at the age of 16 with my first armed robbery case. So because of that arrest, and then another arrest at 19, like I was in and out of correctional facilities, addicted to meth. At this point, by the time I hit Valley State Prison, I was 23 when I went to prison. I had two different traffickers, and I was on my third trafficker. And so what this third trafficker of mine was doing, he was and this is called labor trafficking, when somebody has you selling a large amount of drugs for them and it's on front status. So I thought at the time front status was like, okay, I arrived, right? I finally arrived. I'm here. This man's giving me all these drugs to sell. I'm gonna make my money. I don't have to sleep with nobody. So I thought that was my career. I didn't have an education. I didn't have a resume, or I mean, what I went through on the streets is, of course, transferable skills now. But at the time, I didn't think I was going to be anything else but a drug dealer and sleeping with men and an addict. And so basically, when he was giving me a large amount of dope to sell for him, I thought that was the career I wanted to be. And so basically, because like I said, I was an addict and I was getting robbed left and right, because when you're a female drug dealer, people look at you like you're weak and you're vulnerable, right? So it's like I was getting robbed all the time. And so that will make me be in debt. Or if I got arrested with his drugs, I couldn't tell. I had to do the time, right? So I would get out and be in a debt with him again. So it's like this revolving door. I was in a contract with this man that I couldn't get out because he was always threatening me with my family. He was threatening me that he was gonna, whoever I was with, he was gonna hurt him if I didn't pay him his money. So it's like I was always in debt with this man. And so I remember there was times too where I would get in his car, I would pay him the money I did have. He would give me more drugs to go and sell for him. This was in San Francisco. And then before I can even get out the car for my freedom, I had to sexually perform. So that's another form of trafficking. So it's like I was experiencing all this trauma and all this trafficking. I didn't know. I was unaware. And so eventually, at the age of 26, I got pregnant. And throughout my pregnancy, I couldn't stop using because I was so addicted into the life, into the streets, into like addiction. It was so in me, I couldn't stop. And so I remember a month before me giving birth to my son, I got clean. So I was able to give birth to my son, but I didn't have a connection with him because I was totally damaged. Like I was totally dead inside. I couldn't have that connection with my baby. And so I remember I walked out the hospital, maybe like a week later, I went back to that life. I went back to the life because that's all I knew. People ask me too, how come you just didn't get out? It's not that simple. Like, it's not that simple. And survivors, my sisters on here know it. It ain't that simple. And so basically when I went back to that life, I took my baby with me. And I remember like, and I met with my trafficker again, and I would continue to sell drugs for him, you know, making transactions with my baby in my other hand and the drugs in the other hand, or I'll leave them in dope houses, let them in car seats, just doing the most with my baby. And then finally, I got arrested for the last time. And that's where I was rolling around with an informant. I didn't know he was an informant, but him and an undercover cops basically set me up and they arrested me. And that's where I decided I needed to change my life around. I needed to do something different because I needed to put my son first. And so I ended up getting 5 years between two different counties um, for, you know, because of I had a long history of selling drugs, and just because of my record, they ended up giving me 5 years. But I needed to change. That woke me up. That was my waking point. And I just want to say that God used that whole experience to just turn my life around to do what I'm doing today. And so I did my time. When I was incarcerated, I got my GED, which it was huge for me because I've never accomplished anything before. I remember crying and giving everybody high fives in the facility. I completed a program when I was incarcerated called Starting Point, and that's where I learned about my family's past and my trauma, and being in addiction and all that stuff. And I remember one of the facilitators telling me, "Hey, if you want to do different, you want to be honest here, you need to be honest out on the streets. I mean, you need to be honest here, and then you can be honest on the streets." And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to take that advice. So I remember going back to my mod and letting the deputies know, like, hey, I got contraband in my cell. So and they're like, why are you telling us you have contraband? I'm like, because I'm trying to be honest and I want to do something different. And they're like, okay. So of course there was consequences, but I'm just saying, like, this is how hungry I was. It's kind of like I was a baby crawling, because it's like I'm learning to be who I am today. I was learning all over again. And so I got out, went to women's recovery services, and learned, because I shared my story in this rehab facility with other clients, and there was no shame and no judgment in the room when I was sharing my story. And they told me, they were like, you know what? You are a trafficking victim. I was like, what? They're like, no, that wasn't your fault, and there's no such thing as a child prostitute. So when I learned about that, I was able to receive like my voice, my power. I was able to receive like all this guilt and this shame that was on me because of that. I kept it a secret because I don't want nobody judging me. It all fell off when they told me it wasn't my fault and that I was a trafficking victim. So because of that, I started to have more confidence in sharing my story. And then I started having motivation to go back to school and to be a counselor, like do something in the community. So in 2014, I got out of the program. I went to SRJC, which is Santa Rosa Junior College, in 2014. And I became part of the Bear Cub Scholars, which is for foster youth. And they just kind of helped me continue to be more of a better advocate, teaching me how about helping people and stuff like that. And then in 2016, I want to say, I met with Second Chance. So I became part of that club as well. It's for formerly incarcerated students. And the advisor asked me, hey, would you like to be the president of this club? I said, no, I do not. Like, do you not know my story? Like, where I've been, where I came from, like what I've done? I don't think I can lead your students. And they're like, yes, you can. And because she believed in me, I was able to start believing in myself. And that's why I always highlight that to people, because we have to believe in others in order to help them believe in them until they're able to believe in themselves, especially if they come from traumatic backgrounds. So she believed in me. I started being the president of the club, and now it's a full-blown program with over 100 students. And when I started, it was only three of us. So that's just a miracle how it grew. And because of our advocacy and dedication around it. And so, like I said, I received a governor's pardon in 2018 from Governor Jerry Brown. And I graduated SRJC with highest honors and with 3 AAs, human services, social advocacy, and behavioral science. And that was a miracle to walk that stage with my degrees. Like in order to to help people, and to just give people hope that they can overcome it and be successful as well. And so I went to Sonoma State and I just graduated last May with a bachelor's in sociology with distinction. And that's a miracle as well for me. Like I'm just keep moving up all the ladder. And right now I'm currently at Arizona State University getting my master's in social justice and human rights because I just want to continue to use my pain for purpose and just giving back to the community and helping other survivors know that they too can overcome it. House here in Sonoma County. We speak nationally. We speak all over the world. So we're just excited to be here. Like I'm excited to be here to be able to share my story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and congratulations for your graduations, and good luck to you for graduating again, for getting your master's as well.
Thank you.
Definitely appreciate you. Tatiana, um, you next, if you do want to do the pleasure of telling us about your story as well.
Yes. So I'm gonna try not to go into real detail, only because it's just extremely graphic. Um, so me and two of my friends were kidnapped and trafficked at the ages of 12, 13, and 14. Um, and it kind of, I want to start with that our trafficker did not look like what most people think a trafficker would look like. He didn't drive a creepy white van. It was, someone who looked just like us, someone who was very nice prior to us getting in the car, um, and definitely painted a picture that we were not ready for. Um, so basically, we were hanging out like most young teens do at night. It was in January, and this was like 20 years ago. And on our way heading home, we are getting ready to walk home, and these guys pull up in this car. It was three of them, and they just start speaking to us and giving us compliments and why don't you let us take you home? We'll give you a ride. And why not? Why not get a ride? They seem nice, right? So me being 12, I had no idea what was on the other side of that car door when we got in there. I am happy and thankful that we were at least together, even though we experienced so many horrific things during the 3 week, 4 week process that we were kidnapped. Um, I'm glad that we were together. And it was me, Nicole, and Jessica, who is no longer with us anymore. She was unfortunately murdered. So, in that time that we got in the car, it was just very uncomfortable. I just remember us all kind of looking at each other like something's not right. We kind of we didn't say it because we couldn't just say that out to each other, but we felt it. And even after, like when me and Nicole talked about it, it was something that we kind of said without speaking. That we probably we did, but in the moment it was, we probably made a bad decision by getting in the car with these guys. And he just took us to a hotel room. He stripped us of our clothes. He took everything of ours. We had one main trafficker, and he had his friends that would like watch us. They were like watchdogs. That's what the best way to describe them. And he just sold us repeatedly. And he would bring us to different places and showcase us. And we pleaded with him with, our how old we are, and please let us go home. We won't tell. And we do talk about this in our book, Life Outside the Game, um, which details everything that we experienced. So, in the mindset of a 12-year-old, for me personally, just with that information, because I want to give Nicole opportunity to talk a little bit about our story as well. Um, it was very traumatizing, as most people would know and understand, but you would be surprised how many people just don't understand what we go through as being survivors. And until this day, I'm still healing. It's a roller coaster sometimes. It's up and down. That's why I love what I do, because it's healing for me. Working with youth, my same age, that have either been trafficked or at risk to be trafficked, is just, it's life giving for me. And it keeps me going when times are either really challenging or just, just not in a good space. Um, the process of writing our book was definitely healing. There's true healing in verbalizing your trauma. I don't know who needed to hear that, but start writing, start journaling. That was big for us. I know for me personally, I'm still a writer. I still journal my thoughts and my feelings because that is a tool that works for me. Um, just to touch on a little bit of the justice system, how we were treated once we escaped and we arrived at Jessica's house. We were treated like criminals. We were treated like we chose what happened to us. We put ourselves in that situation. And unfortunately, that was just what it was. Like, we had no say in anything when it came to how we were, treated, and then the resources that were not given to us for our own mental health. So finding out all these years later, like, what happened to us was really not our fault, was very eye opening. And it was a pivotal moment in my life personally, to realize for once, finally, that it was not my fault. I did not do this to myself. And nobody deserves to be treated like that, because they basically labeled us as child prostitutes, which there's no such thing as a child prostitute. Um, so that's where the system failed us. That's why we work so closely with our local Jacksonville Police Academy, with training them, the new cadets, before they come out on the street. Um, and I'm open for questions at the end. I'm an open book. Me and Nicole are open books, and I'm going to pass it over to Nicole.
Yeah, so going off, just ending the story from when when we returned home, we obviously did not return back as the same innocent teenage girls that we were, being treated like it was our fault and that we were just runaways, or just the labels that they put on us. We started to believe those labels, and then so that ultimately altered our decision making, from that point on. I was sent to live in California after that happened. And to mention, what happened to us happened in Jacksonville, Florida, where we currently live now. And then so I was sent to live in California. And I'm sorry if y'all can hear my kids in the background.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So
It's okay.
yeah. So so when I was sent to live in California, with my family, I was sent there to kind of have like a fresh start, on a new life, and but living with my aunt, things seemed to be going well for a little bit. I was 14 years old, and I was enrolled in a high school there in San Francisco. And then her husband would start to pick me up from school, and then he started to molest me and rape me every single day. And so and then, without my aunt really understanding what happened to me in Florida with us being kidnapped, she just took me running away from her house, because when he would rape me, I just would start running away. I started running away from her house. She took that behavior as me just acting out. And then when I eventually told her what her husband was doing to me, she didn't believe me. She said, "Oh, you're just behaving like how your family said you would, and this, that, and the other." And so she kicked me out of her house, gave me $2 bills, and dropped me off at the BART station, and basically said she didn't want me around her kids and her family, and this, that, and the other. And so that landed me in the hands of a pimp. But at that time, I didn't identify this man as a pimp. He was just a guy who happened to be in front of the bar station and offered me a ride and a place to stay. And, and so when and he was like, well, if you're going to stay with me, this is what you have to do. And so him and this woman, they taught me how to walk the streets in Oakland, California, and in San Francisco, and they were said, if you're gonna stay with me, this is what you have to do. And so that's just what I did. I was basically in survival mode throughout all of my teen years until I eventually became a teen mother. And just that was my life for a while, just as the years progressed. And then I had my daughter, after she turned about like 1 or 2 years old. I was invited to a church by my neighbor. And then, from that church, I was actually able to meet another woman who we shared similar like background, just as far as like the street life and being in the game and stuff. And so she just kind of explained to me, that we had some similar things in common. And then from there, I, got myself into some counseling, and then was able to get myself just some real help, and go back to school, and then eventually it became to like lead different other support groups. But still, I didn't really understand that I was a survivor of human trafficking. Like, I was still just kind of like living and going through life. And and Tatiana and I, we had reconnected, and started the journey of writing our book. And then in that journey of writing our book is when we learned that we were in fact human trafficking survivors. And that was about I don't know, about 6 or 7 years ago now. That was a while ago now. But it took some time. So survivors of human trafficking don't always know that you're, a victim of human trafficking. Like, you kind of just see yourself like you're just surviving through life. We're doing what we know. We're doing what we know and what we have to do to survive. And that's just what I did, for a very, very long time. And so I'm thankful that, we're able to be out now and to share our story and to inspire and empower other women that are, trying to find themselves how to get out of the life as well. And so that just kind of sums up my story and our story together.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate it. Sophie, you are next. If you can please tell us a little bit about your story as well.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, which is considered to be very conservative, very white. The Mormon church is there. And so I was raised by a young mom who was a model and just cared more about getting drunk. And she just she didn't, like, she would tell us, like, she never had a maternal instinct for my sister and I. So at a young age, we went to go live with our grandparents, and we had these older cousins who also had a young mom who would be dropped off at our grandparents. And so I think abuse started to happen in my life when I was about 2 years old. And from that, even from a really young age, I joke, and people will joke like, oh, Sophie just always loved a bad boy. But I think it was like the only form, because when my mom was around, she would beat the shit out of us just when we were so young, excuse my profanity. And so when my cousins would feel like protectors, but would also abuse us because they were like 3, 4, 5 years older, um, it really embedded at such a young age that, like, older men can do what they want, but they're going to take care of you. They're going to protect you. And that story would just spin out of control. And so I ended up moving out of my grandparents' house. My mom got remarried, went and lived with her, really abusive situation. So at the age of 8, I went to go live with my father. And he lived in a normal suburban neighborhood. He's a criminal attorney and family attorney. He isn't Mormon, and we weren't Mormon. And so it was extremely taboo for this young girl. They have such strong beliefs in that state. So it was very taboo for a young girl to be raised by a man. And so, most little girls weren't allowed to hang out with me. And therefore, I just gravitated towards, the bad kids of the school, if you will. I mean, the kids that were like selling drugs at a young age. And so I started, just always wanting to be older, always wanting to be around drug dealers, always wanting to be around bad boys, always finding that that was my validation. I never felt like I fit in around what would be considered normal people. And then my dad, it's interesting. My dad never abused me, but I would go to dinner with grown men. It was my dad's date to everything from the age of 8 to the age of 16. And so I would go to dinner with what we would call my uncles. And so I was always around grown men. Like 5 nights a week, we'd go out to eat. And so I just felt very comfortable around men. And they would always tell me how pretty I was. And so I just would always get so much validation off of that, and I had really low self-worth because I had a learning disability. I didn't know how to read. I came from a home where my mom was an alcoholic. She beat us. Now I'm in this totally like what would seem pristine environment, and I'm just totally broken, and I'm 8. And so fast forward, loved a drug dealer, would just play on the streets, felt safe with those men. They never trafficked me. Would always drink a ton, and I'm in recovery now, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. But back then, that's just where I felt comfortable. And so I met a guy, and he was somewhat normal, if you will. And we moved from Utah to Colorado to Portland, Oregon. And like I said, I always like to party, and me and this guy broke up. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just go find a D-boy. Like, I'm gonna go find a drug dealer. Like, I'm gonna go find what I know. Was partying way too much, doing too many drugs, lost my, like, all within 1 week, I lost my job, got a DUI, and met this man who I didn't know at the time, but had been in the game and like pimping young females for over a decade. I mean, I must have looked like just, his, like he won the lottery, because here I am. I'm getting evicted. I need an attorney. I need somewhere to say, like these other women have said, like you get this opportunity, like it's presented, or to me, it was presented as this opportunity. And he never ever in the beginning said I had to sell my body. He's like, oh, he presented as like, oh no, we're together. Like you're my girlfriend. And I was like, oh, and there weren't any other females around. But he started bringing women around that were in the game that had, diamonds and were beautiful, and everything looked so glamorous, and everything seemed like it was just all good. And so about 3 weeks after being around him, I finally said, okay, I'll do it. And the next day he had me on an airplane. We were in Oregon out to New York. So I had no chance of someone coming to help me. And we went from New York to DC to Florida, back up to New Jersey, and things went south fast. I mean, just beating me often, like when, training me not to like look up and make eye contact. And like, I was such an outspoken young female, like you couldn't tell me anything. I had, I was rebellious. And so like, that was surely going to be taken away from me, and quickly. Like that was seen as obviously not good and risky. We ended up in Las Vegas, and that's where we were going to plan our routes, and where he had been with other women for a long time. And, his job was to start, I was like going to be the bottom bitch, and his job was to start bringing in more females. And as that was going on, my family found out what was going on about me, or family found out what was going on with me. And thank God that I do have, some support in that area. And they started trying to get me home and doing all this, but I was so brainwashed. I was like, no, this is the oldest profession in the world. You don't know what you're talking about. Wasn't telling them that he was beating me. Like, I just was so fucking jaded. And so they just started to get with these advocacy programs and say, what do we do? What do we do? How can we help her? And they were like, really, she's an adult. I was 20 at the time, and just thinking I'm living like this glorified lifestyle, like I've made it. I'm working at higher end services. I'm not street walking. I'm making a lot of money. And so I've bought in, like I'm all in. And these advocacy programs just said, listen, there's going to be a time where she's going to need to run home. Like this will run off. Like something's going to happen to her. It's inevitable. And when she does, you just make sure she's got a place to go. It makes me emotional even to this day. But so that's what would happen. He almost beat me to death. And it became very apparent that if I didn't comply, I was going to end up in the desert, dead. This was not his first rodeo. He didn't need a headache. He needed a worker. And now that he had made enough money with me and he could recruit other females and had the lifestyle, if I didn't get in line, I was going to find my way out of there, and that was going to be dead in a desert. And I was sure of it. And so actually, a friend of mine got my phone number. It just all happened the way it did. And I told this gentleman who had known me for years, because nobody had my phone number. He had paid my girlfriend for my phone number. He had been a drug dealer that would found out about it. I swear, when you're in the game and you're in the streets, it's like, one resource to the next. But he had just said, so, Sophie, he lived in Salt Lake, and he said, I found out what's going on, and we had been friends for a long time. And he just said, I bought you a plane ticket, and you're going to get on that plane ticket, or you're going to jump on that plane tonight, or I'm driving down there and I will take you home. I was so terrified, and knowing that I was going to run away that day. And it was just a God thing that he called me, like how it all went down. And so I went back to my house with my black and blue face and said, I think I'm going to go work. I'm going to go to the service. And he kind of was like looking at me, and I just kept praying. And I took that, I left that night, took his car to the service, or not to the service, to a hotel, and then went to the airport, and I came home. And I would love to tell you that that was the last time I ever saw that man. But because when you're bred to believe that this is the only way you're going to be loved, like when you're conditioned, I should say, to believe this is how you find love, this is how you find value, I'd still see that man. He came to Salt Lake a few times. I worked for him a few more times. He was trying to get me back. And what was also really hard was it was like everyone from Salt Lake that always thought I was a little different, everyone now knew that I was a prostitute, an escort, maybe a streetwalker. So this insurmountable amount of shame had come over, even more than I had when I was little, and I don't fit in. So from that point, I decided, okay, obviously I need to quit drinking. I need to get sober. I need to get my mind right. And so I got sober. I said I was going to do it for a year. I did it for a year, and I got my real estate license. I started drinking again, but what happened was I was so motivated to do something different with my life and to have my own money and to have my own freedoms that I would go on to build 4 other very successful real estate companies in 3 different states. And then the problem with all of that is that I was still so conditioned from wanting to be with somebody that abuse meant love. And so, it didn't matter how normal I looked on the outside. I was usually dating someone that was doing something in the criminal world, that was beating me, talking down to me, treating me poorly. And I broke that cycle in 2018 when I got sober finally, and it stuck. I found breath work, really started to heal, started to work with other people on their healing journey about storing trauma in our body, about being safe in our body, about showing others how to obtain that and guide people through that. And then, I left real estate, which I think real estate is a lot like the game in some ways. You're performing all the time for people, and stepped fully into business coaching and leading other women in terms of growing businesses, and giving them opportunity, and really not just that, but allowing people to come to me and heal in a safe place, because there's no judgment when I'm facilitating that. And so it's an honor. I want to do more in terms of helping women that are victims of human trafficking, but this was my story and how I kind of found my freedom and my way out, and how I facilitate and help others today.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for that. Definitely appreciate it. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna have Swag reset one more time, and then we're gonna go into questions, starting with Ion. If Ion want to speak and ask questions, we're gonna go to that if that's okay with you, ladies. Um, Swag, so if you want to do the honors, bro, go ahead and reset. Then we're gonna get into the question segment.
Oh, absolutely, no problem. Hey, y'all, welcome to Trolls Nation, man. It is going down, man. The Lydia is the most dopest club on Clubhouse, one of the most talked about, man. Where we have a lot of topics and conversations, man. We talk about a whole bunch of different things. All I need you to do right now for me, though, is troll up to the top, man. Hit that little green casa, join a family, become a part of the conversation, become a part of the family, man. We love having you here. Make sure you follow all the moderators on stage, follow everybody on stage, because somebody's going to add some value to you and your life. I really, really appreciate this conversation. This is bringing about so much awareness. We're talking about national slavery and human trafficking. We've had some, you would call them survivors, but we call them warriors. We call them people we're proud of being able to speak out. We call them people who are proud of being able to step out and say, you know what, we're not going to take this anymore. And I'm tired of this situation. I don't want to be here anymore. And I want to make sure that I be positive and do something positive for myself and get myself out of this situation. So I just want to commend each and every lady and man who goes through these situations. I appreciate y'all so much, and we are here to let you have this safe space. Welcome to Trolls Nation. It's going down, man. T Rose, it's back to you, bro.
Definitely appreciate it, bro. So I'm gonna pass it to Ion. Ion, if you want to say any words or ask any questions, it's on you, brother. Ion, you there? All right, we're gonna get back to Ion.
Oh,
I'm a
yeah, he might be having some issues with his phone. Go ahead.
no, that's fine. I'm a give it to JJ. JJ, you there? If you wanna just speak on human trafficking or ask any questions, it's on you, brother.
It's been a little glitchy for me. Maybe we can hear.
Yeah, you came off your mic, JJ, but we do not hear you. Just let you know. So if you are speaking, hold your thought. Try to come back
I
to.
love. Oh, can you hear
There
me
you
here?
are. Yes, now we can hear you, and now we
Yeah.
cannot.
Sorry. Okay.
No.
Here. I'll just say this. So I know sometimes it's a very somber thing, reliving things that many of you ladies who've spoken. I want to ask, if there's something that you could dream about in regards to what you would love to see on a national, state, provincial, or municipal level. What is one dream that you have, and anything inspirational, just to see that you guys are capable, you ladies rather, are capable of dreaming and seeing hope. I think a lot of the times we focus on the re-victimization and the narrative of that, but I'd love to see what you've taken from this and what you want to see moving forward as men and allies and other women and can partner with that.
I can speak on that. Starting, well, I'm moving to my new business office on the 1st from one to another. But I am planning a 1 million march for the child welfare system, foster care, and survivors. I'm going to be working on that as of the 1st. A dream, I wouldn't say a dream. It's just it's natural. It's just in me to do for others and support others. It's not a dream because every day I wake up, I'm just doing something that I love. So I don't know if I want to say a dream. Um, but to see the foster care system, oh, that's a whole nother conversation about change. But it needs to start with the social workers, the guardian ad litem, and that systematic system of their regulations, process, and rules of how they handle children, because it's supposed to be about the children, but it's not. So that needs to be the forefront of everything. And it needs to be some accountability there as well. So that's something I've been fighting, going to continue fighting. I also wrote an op-ed about 3 years ago about foster care and human trafficking, because a lot of times a lot of people don't mix the two together, and they just seem like they scratch the surface and really don't even want to talk about it. So I stand in it. I speak up. I stand out. I don't care who it is. I call out the governor, mayor. It doesn't even matter to me who. So just know that I'm doing everything that I love. I'm passionate about it. And I'm going to continue creating change and show it in my actions.
No, that's dope. Any other lady want to speak on that?
I will. So I would say like a dream for me is to have, you know, a good amount of emergency shelter. We do not have enough emergency shelters in the United States for survivors of sex trafficking, especially when they're actively escaping their trafficker. And there's not much time to plan, and it's more gotta go, gotta take what I can. In most cases, when a survivor is escaping, they can take nothing but themselves. But when they do try to escape, there's nowhere for them to go. And then on top of having nowhere to go, it's they have to go back because that's what they know. So that's how a lot of times survivors end up back in the hands of their trafficker because they've been stripped of all of the things that they need and want, and it's given to them. It's baby fed to them the way the trafficker wants to give it to you. So you always have to rely on them. So for me, it would be emergency shelters.
Hey,
That's dope.
oh, okay, my bad. Go ahead,
No,
T.
go ahead, Swag. Go ahead, Swag.
Oh yeah, I just had a quick question, and like I said, once again, thank y'all so much for being here, just sharing your story. I know it could probably be a little difficult at times, but I just had a question for Elizabeth, and all of you all can kind of answer this. But what are some of the things that you've kind of done to kind of cope with just kind of soothing yourself at those times when people, family members, significant others can't really, get as close to you when you've got a wall up, when you start letting those things down, but then you start taking some actions upon yourself. And so the question for Elizabeth, I commend you first for, holding your monthly meetings of the SMC Human Trafficking Initiative. And I want to ask you about your presentation that you do with turning pain into purpose, and then also ask you about your book that you have, which is called Purified in the Flame, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, sorry, I was trying to find my mute button. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so me, I still don't have some of my family members are still in that life. And because of just knowing like who I am today and just knowing something different and knowing that that's not the life I want to be, I choose to set those boundaries with my family members. But how I'm able to cope with that is I know, like I said, I have a higher power, which is God, and I just know that He puts people in my life to stand in the gap of me not having my blood family. So like the church is my family, like Nicole, Tatiana, the sisters here are my family. I consider family. When I lead the support group for trafficking victims and I help empower them with Lisa McQuaid, those are all my family. Organizations, those are my family. Like God puts people in my life to be my family. And that's how I start. In reality, when I was born, like I was born with innocence and happy. And so that's truly within my core. That's who I am, a happy genuine person. And just because of what happened to me growing up and everything I went through on the streets, it's like I had to put this mask on. And like you said, like I had this shield up. I had to have this shield because I had to survive, right? But now that I'm learning something different, it's like my true self is coming out, right? And I'm learning to heal, to forgive people, to like meditate. When I do a lot of meditations, I meditate, I listen to music, I journal. I get in my Bible, I read the Bible, whatever works for y'all though, like whatever meditation works for you, get in your private area. I go to the mountains a lot. I like to go hiking and just get lost in nature because that's what helps me meditate. Just to be myself with my creator and just spend time with him. And that's what helps me cope and to start letting my guard down and letting my heart soften, because in reality, like I said, I'm really like inside, I'm a really like happy, genuine person. So all of the other stuff I went through, like a mask, having a shield on, like because I'm in a battle, like it was all like a cover up because I was trying to protect myself and survive. And I don't have to be like that anymore. So just those are my type of ways how I cope today, and just doing a lot of seminars. I attend seminars. I attend. I see, I go to sermons. I watch training on YouTube. I read a lot of books, to motivational books, to help me be motivational and to turn my pain into purpose. And so, and when I speak, when I share my story, because I do, a lot of people ask me to speak, like motivational speaking, and I have a lot of platforms like all across the world, right? Um, it gets me excited. Like I remember Tatiana saying, it's like it heals her. It heals her when she's speaking her truth, and that's what it does for me. It gives me a purpose to know that everything I went through in the past, it's not going in vain. Like, it's not going to go in vain. It's being used for something good now, and it helps me wake up out of bed to go and show up for that presentation I'm doing, or touched by what I'm saying. And so that's what helps me to just be motivated to go speak and share my truth and just bring hope to, what to others. And so the book I'm working on right now is Purified in a Flame, and it actually comes out next month. I just did my last interview with the ghostwriter on Friday. So I'm just excited for that book to come out, because that's where I'm able to get more in depth on what happened to me on the streets. And I'm able to just talk about those moments, those aha moments, those moments where I was able to let my wall down, how I was able to cope, how I was able to like forgive, how I was able to turn it around, how I was able to change my mindset. Because coming from that type of life and being in the game, like, it's hard to change your mindset. So you can't just go to sleep and wake up one day, oh, I'm changed. No, there's a lot of work around that. So I talk about that in my book as well. And just hoping that it inspires people. And so if anybody's like curious about that, go ahead and just follow me, or you can look me up on Instagram. It's Kiddos Elizabeth 2015. You can find me on Instagram, and you can get more. It's going to be on Amazon next month. So then if you have more questions around my memoir, you can reach out to me that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to go ahead and ask a question or just speak on um, human trafficking, or how we can prevent it? Jared, you can go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I will just thank you again for having this space and inviting me this morning. I put on my calendar. I didn't know exactly what I was going to be attending, but just the women and men. JJ shared a little earlier. I mean, what I've heard. I mean, you don't realize there are people out there. First of all, they're so fucking evil, but also people that this is affected, and that they're just people that are so strong. Like women in here, they're just so strong that are continuing to live their lives after these things have happened. I got daughters. I grew up with my mom and my sister primarily. I mean, I just can't. It's hard to imagine until you hear these stories. So it just, I applaud you for coming in here and even just sharing it with people you don't know. And I hope it helps you and it brings awareness. So I say thank you. That's all. I think it's enlightening. So thank you for sharing it. That's all. Thank you.
No, definitely. Thank you, Jared. And I actually do have a question for JJ, if you can answer this. Because one thing that's really not talked about is men going through human trafficking. So can you speak on just males, just men going through that, and with you being preview to human trafficking?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the work that I used to do with the UN and some agencies that I can't really reveal, but we would go and do actually breaks into brothels. I mean, these are in some of the, we're in Zimbabwe, we're in some other Southeast Asian countries where we go in and actually do rescues. And anyone who knows and who's lived in it, understands that this isn't one thing. I mean, the demand for sex, the demand for little boys and little girls and women and increasingly men, and the fetishization of it and infantilization of, like, that is all fed by adjacent things like, things like pornography or things like violence against women or domestic, and issues and all that stuff. But going back to the issue when you're talking about like men and boys, and it is very it is prevalent. I work, my specialization is working with big sporting events. So like whenever there's like a World Cup, I was in Russia, I was in South Africa in 2010, in Brazil. Whenever there's a big thing, even like the Super Bowl, I mean, I was in the Olympics, and whenever there's a big thing, we work on the grounds because the increase of demand goes up, right? And the irony sometimes that these people who are working for these big multinational corporations or even the UN, they are some of the biggest purchasers of this. Sorry about that. It's not a poor connection. And so you'll see a lot of men and boys who are in labor and sexualized slavery as well, and increasingly. And so it is covert. I mean, I remember being in South Africa. We went into a bar, and you could. There are places where you can just ask for, "Hey, I want someone," and you ask for, "I want young." Or I want a boy or a little girl, and you could get that. I mean, in the Philippines, in these all these areas, and it is, it's crazy. And the thing is, it's not some third world global south issue. This is something happening in Canada, in the U.S., in Europe. Like in all these places. So, but yeah, the increased demand for young boys and ethnicity is a big thing. So yeah, it is horrific. It's all over, and we need to stand together in all areas. So yeah.
Oh man, that's dope. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to go ahead and ask a question or just speak on human trafficking or in ways to prevent it as well?
I wanted to ask a question. And I wanted to speak on it too. My name is Tree, and I just wanted to thank, oh my God, the women that spoke their stories on this stage. Simply amazing. And the work that you guys are doing, I just want you to know that it's going to save a lot of young girls' lives. And I'm tearing up right now, and it's hard for me to tear up, but these stories touch me so bad because I grew up in a place where I didn't thank God because my grandmother kept me under lock and chain, but I witnessed abuse from on women. I witnessed that, and when just to witness it as a kid is still trauma. I still feel the pain of seeing a woman getting beat, and it's something about it that'll never. I don't think it'll ever leave me. And so I just want to tell the women to keep going. You guys are survivors. But I also wanted to ask, I think it was Elizabeth that was speaking. She spoke about forgiving the people that abused her because they were abused and they had messed up lives. And I just wanted to know because I'm a forgiving person too, and it took me a long time to get to that point, but I'm there. It took steps, but I'm there. I'm a forgiving person, and a lot of people tell me like, "Why do you deal with people, or why do you talk to people?" But I just don't hold. I'm not a person that hold on to things. So I wanted to ask you, what was it? What was your aha moment or that pivotal point to for you to see past your pain and basically see your the people that were abusing you pain, to forgive them, because that's powerful right there. That's powerful.
Hi, yes, thank you. It's a Tree. Is your name Tree?
Yes, it's true.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much, Tree. For me, just like I'm really on a spiritual journey right now, and for me, um, I was very angry still, even though I, got clean and got my life together, and came here to Sonoma County and just kind of left everything behind. I still had a lot of stuff in my heart that was kind of holding me back to my full potential. It's holding me. There was barriers, like I couldn't dig deep to reach the fire that was really in me, to pull it out to use to help people, right? So basically, that's how, when I realized that unforgiveness was something that was in my way, like knowing that unforgiveness was something that was blocking me for me to my full potential, I was like, oh, I gotta work on this. And then also too, learning that having compassion for my enemies, like having compassion for my enemies, and basically understanding their background, like they didn't just choose. I mean, this is a whole different topic, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. Yeah, when my mom abused me, she didn't choose to wake up one day and say, oh, I'm gonna have a baby and start abusing her when she grows up. Like, that was not her mindset. It was something that she had learned. It was a way of living for her because that's what she went through. And so I even talk about this too when I do my speaking, my speaking engagements, that sometimes too, even with traffickers, like they learned that somewhere. They didn't just wake up one day and say, they weren't 10 years old and say, hey, I'm gonna be a trafficker, I'm gonna sell all these women. They didn't say that. Something happened where they learned that behavior. Something happened, so they had that, they developed that mindset to get to where they're at. So I look at the bigger picture and trying to see what happened to them at some point where they turned to this type of person, right? And so that's what helped me to understand from a compassionate understanding and have empathy, and then realizing that I need to work towards forgiveness, because if I don't forgive, I'm going to be stuck. The forgiving is for me, has nothing to do with my mother, has nothing to do with my traffickers, anybody that did anything to me, because in reality I don't get to call them and say, hey, I forgive you. I don't get to do that, but I do it for me, because I choose to forgive, because I want to be set free and I want to reach my full potential that God has called me to do. So thank you, Tree.
I love that. I absolutely love that because it's so much power in that. It's
Yeah,
so much power in that, to being able to release all of that hurt and pain and
yeah.
still forgive. That's powerful. Thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
This is Manisha, about halfway up the stage. I'd like to say something also. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank y'all for the space. I want to also say thank you to the ladies who were brave enough to come and share your stories with us today. And shout out to Trolls Nation also for even providing the space to allow this conversation to take space. My mom, she was in the foster care system also. She doesn't have a good relationship with her mom. All of my uncles and aunts actually refer to her as the incubator. Out of 7 children, 6 of them were taken by the state. All of them were adopted by different families. But my mom and her twin were actually bounced around from about 4 to 5 homes, to my knowledge, at least that she's felt comfortable enough to share with me, before they were actually placed with a family. She was abused at a young age also. At 13, she was pregnant with her first child. She miscarried at 16. She was pregnant with her second child. It was a stillbirth. After that, she was able to kind of, I guess, find a safer space. And she became pregnant with me at 17. Thank God that that one was not out of an abusive situation. But now we're talking about the 90s, and, they were kind of forced into marriage. The marriage did not last long. They actually didn't get married until I was 1. The marriage lasted about a year. After that, she kind of went back into a depression. At the time, she didn't know she had depression. She was diagnosed with that later on down the line. Mixed that in with family deaths and just more abuse. And so she was going through a very difficult space. Luckily today, she's doing much, much better. When I started studying in college, maybe like this is in fall 2010 going into 2011, the medications and stuff that she was on, when she actually started to acknowledge and bring awareness to the situations that happened to her, she was in look, the Spanish is trying to start coming out of me, y'all gotta excuse me, I'm bilingual. I'm trying to keep it in English. But she was admitted into several like psych wards because of her suicidal thoughts and suicidal attempts and stuff like that. And so luckily today, she's in a better space. She hasn't shared 100% with my sisters and I, but I just want to thank you ladies for being brave, because I know sometimes well, I can't say I know because I haven't been in those shoes, but I'm empathizing with you. And I just want to say thank you for sharing it, because for some people it's not hard, it's not easy for them to just come up and say that. And one of you ladies said something earlier about some power in healing actually comes from verbalizing that and saying it out loud, and I absolutely do believe that. So I just want to thank y'all for taking the time and coming up to share today, and again to Trolls for providing the space for everybody, and thank you for the space.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's on Crook right quick, and then I got you, Jaya. I'm gonna give to Brother Crook.
Thank you, T. Rose. Um, First and foremost, I want to thank um, the panel, the participants, for coming and having the courage and confidence for speaking on their experiences. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Crook. You good? You okay?
First and foremost, thank you for the courage and confidence for coming and speaking to some of your experiences um, about this awareness. I know that there are varying and multiple levels in which slavery and human trafficking can take place. But on the note of awareness, I would ask if you can enlighten us as to some indicators that would make those who may be around to witness or may suspect others, other individuals or other persons or peoples, if they suspect people being caught in these circumstances, some things to look out for, if I can ask that.
Um, well, because my experience was in a foster care, it's very, all I can say is a child, it's tough because in that system, you're not heard. And a lot of times it's happening to a lot of people that have experienced that system. Um, but what I will say is that it takes listening, right? Sometimes children draw. I have a book here that I was drawing in the second grade that I still have. You can tell by my drawings on what was going on, you know? And so that's another way because art is like a happy place for all children and they will draw out what's going on in their life. And that's just one thing. So also, asking those questions in a way that kids can understand, right? That means by not calling private parts by nicknames, call them what they are, because it's teaching kids to say Willie or Cookie, and that confuses them because then when you are asking those questions, when you say penis or vagina, they don't know the difference because they know Willie or Cookie, right? So please use the language that is what you're supposed to use when it comes to your private areas. Please use the correct language with children because that will confuse them even more. So that's one thing I'll tell you too. Another, uh, a lot of times in schools, right? You're tired a lot. Some kids aren't eating a lot. They're hoarding food in their backpacks. They're taking food and hiding it, right? And this is out in general. This is out in schools that I did it, and a lot of other kids did it, right? That's another sign. And there's a lot more, but I want to pass it on to the other women too as well, because they can give you some more signs. I'm talking about the foster care aspect, but they can also talk about other things as well.
Hi.
I'm an educator, Yanadine, and I definitely agree with what you said about using appropriate anatomy. I've been in a situation where I've had to report that for a child saying that her uncle was, trying to touch her cookie or eat her cookie. And, it went unnoticed for a long time before that young girl could get help. This is second grade. I don't think it was found out until she was in fifth grade. I only taught at the school for 1 year and then I moved up to the high school level. But yeah, please use anatomically correct names with your children.
Wow, that's so sad. I can't imagine to hear a little girl or a little boy, say those words or say that somebody's touching them. I don't even think I'd be able to speak. I'd break down and cry.
Man, wow, wow.
Probably need to get to your knees and pray because I would be ready to kill somebody. I would be ready to kill. I'm not playing about that. I will
And,
kill
yeah.
them
And
and go and do my time.
And I want to say,
and I want to make this
and
point.
I want to say this too as well. I, trust me, that feeling with my daughter, trust me. And also I'm a grandmother too. So I would say this. You have to be careful with that too because you can scare your kids, right? By your reaction, because now they know how you react. And it doesn't matter if it's that, it's at home. Kids pay attention to everything that you do. Do not believe that your kids don't know what's going on in your household. I want to put that out there, as well as be careful on how you react to things, because if that is going on with your child, they will not tell you what's going on because they're scared of you and your reaction of losing you. You're going to jail and now they're left behind. Kids know that. Trust me. We know it. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to put that out there. Be very careful on how you react around your children, because a lot of times they will not come to you when there is a lot of danger, a lot of harm their way, or that is happening to them, because they're afraid of what your reaction is going to be and if you're going to go away for life and be away from them. So I just want to put that out there as well.
Thank
Um,
you. It's on you,
I,
Tatiana.
so following up on what all the good points that was just made, um, the biggest one that came to mind while listening to these beautiful women speak is that there are a lot of young people who have been sexually abused, and when they do try to come out with it, it's not received the way it should be, and that's where victim blaming comes in. And usually, like even before sex trafficking, those are just, the risk. These are risky factors that can lead into being trafficked. So if you have a young person that, like I work with youth, and I have most of all my youth, before they were before they were trafficked, they were sexually abused, and by either a family member or somebody close to the family. For me, in my situation, I was sexually abused at the age of 6 at a Christian camp, by my, I wouldn't call him a counselor, but to me, it was like he was a counselor. And my mom did cry. My mom was angry, and I never told her anything ever again. It wasn't because I was afraid that she would go to jail. Give me a second, baby. Um, it wasn't because I was afraid that she would go to jail. I didn't even understand any of that. I was so pushed and like thrown off with her response and her sadness and her anger. I never wanted to tell her anything because I felt like that's how she would always respond. So moving forward, when we were trafficked, I didn't speak about it. We didn't start talking about it until, I was like, we should write a book and we should tell our story. And like Nicole said, in that point, in that process, that's when we started realizing that, because we just wanted to tell our story for our sister in her honor. In doing that process, it was healing, and we learned, we realized that what we went through was not our fault, and we were able to really start taking the steps forward to healing. And my son just walked in the room, so I'm going to go on mute.
Thank you, Tatiana. I'm gonna pass it to Jaye. Jaye, it's on you, brother.
Appreciate that, T Rose. Thank you for the opportunity, and I definitely appreciate this discussion as we're. It's important to discuss, identify, and know exactly what it is that we're dealing with, and what has been described here on this stage. I think is important for us to point out, in particular, the piece about the foster care system, because those children are the most vulnerable, because they often don't have advocates in the form of parents, siblings, aunts, and uncles who will actually fight for them. And that's why they become targeted the way they do become targeted. As Elizabeth said, and many others agreed, the abusers are often taught that they are often abused, and literally taught that that's the way they should act. I am one that looks at or that advocates more so for those who are accused of human trafficking, more so than those who are labeled as victims of human trafficking. Now, that does not mean that I in any way am insensitive to the horrors of human trafficking, the effects of human trafficking, but it did make me look at it with a critical eye. As you know, anytime I see non-descendants of slavery, enslaved people in the United States, promoting a narrative of black men in particular being the perpetuators of slavery in the United States, that makes me critical in and of itself. And I think people should be sensitive to the fact that descendants of enslaved Africans being made the face of slavery, that this nation has an agenda and would benefit from the narrative of slavery changing from this nation's original sin to something perpetuated by black men. As a criminal defense attorney, I've represented many men, about a dozen, charged with human trafficking. None of them have been charged with alleged to do the acts that have been described here, chaining people. They've been more so pimps. But in California, with a ballot initiative, which is where the voters elect on laws, not the legislatures, they expanded the definition of human trafficking to allow for, duress or enticement and things of this nature, to now expand the definition of human trafficking to where it's blended with pimping so closely it's hard to tell. And with the effects of that and the expanded funding that went to human trafficking task force, don't necessarily go about that. That those funds don't necessarily go to combat human trafficking. They more so go after the black pimps, and we know this because the black pimps have been functioning here in Los Angeles in the same spaces for a long time, Figueroa and other tracks out there. And that's where the human trafficking task forces focus their resources and focus their time. And I've had cases where it was a real pimp hoe situation where the pimp would babysit the prostitute's child while she was doing her trick. She have a bad day, decide I'm still like in the middle of my work day, but she decides she doesn't want to engage in prostitution anymore, goes to the police and now says, hey, I'm my son and I don't want to do this anymore. And they tell her, well, you're either a prostitute and you can get arrested, or you're a victim, and who's show us your victimizer. And that woman goes and says, I don't want to do it anymore that night, points out my client as a victimizer, and then goes and continues in that lifestyle because she wasn't done with it in that moment. And I know people can say, she's been traumatized and likely was, but in the situations I've seen, these were choices that these women made. And so there's a fine line between being making the decision to be a prostitute and being forced into prostitution and being trafficked. And that is something that I think it's important for us to delineate, because we don't want to taint the real stories of human trafficking that we've heard here today. And that's what I think will happen if that line is not drawn in the sand. And the and not to say the woman that chooses to be a prostitute still doesn't deserve help. She may not feel she has other options, so she should still be given resources, but that delineation needs to be made from the ones that feel like they don't have a choice and actually do, and the ones who are beaten or otherwise made to submit to this lifestyle that they really don't want to participate in. And then we have to accept the reality that there's women that have the other options and still choose to engage in this lifestyle, as women are empowered in all careers and all industries, and the sex industry is one of them. And so that would be my contribution to the discussion, to make sure that we're delineating for the purpose, and also acknowledging that the trafficker needs help too, or the pimp needs help too. Somebody taught him about this lifestyle. Most of the pimps I've represented were turned out by women. They thought they were dating a dancer or a girl they thought was a freak, and she says, "Hey, this is what I really do. Here's $1,000. I want to work for you." And now they're turned out, and they don't necessarily have resources on how to get out of the lifestyle if they want to get out of it as well. So I bring that into the discussion just to remember that the other side of it, they're oftentimes traumatized as well. They've been victimized throughout their whole lives as well, and they're not always just monsters. With the understanding that there are legit human trafficking rings. There was a South African TV show about it called Diamond City. That if you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. It's a great show. You should watch it to see how I'm sorry, to expose how it works in those sophisticated rings, and just understand that there's a difference between human trafficking, forcing someone into sex work, and prostitution, pimping and prostitution, which is the choice to engage in this lifestyle. And also point out that at least half to a majority of actual human trafficking is for labor and not for sex. And the Human Trafficking Task Force rarely attack or go after or put any resources towards freeing those victims of human trafficking for labor. And I land my plane on that.
Can I say something, please?
I want to go
Please,
after you,
please,
Ion.
yes. After that
Wow.
too.
A lot of.
It's all Ayan. It's
Yeah.
all Ayan. Go ahead,
I'm
Ayan.
sorry, y'all. I was a little busy, but I was listening to all of your stories, and I just kind of want to say, like, shout outs to all the victims who shared their stories. I want to make this real clear: the majority of the people on this stage were underage. Underage. That means they were under 18. That means, okay, so they were children. Children don't make choices to be hoes or freaking sex workers or things like that. Okay, they are trafficked. I don't know if anybody, if you have a daughter, but if if somebody came, if a grown ass man came to you and said your 13-year-old daughter wants to be pimped, what would you say? I'm just answer for that. You would go ballistic because you know that shit is not true. Okay, this whole idea. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to like this whole black thing. Like, listen. Black people are not excluded from anything. We're not some mystical creatures that we just don't do shit and we're so perfect. At the end of the day, slavery is still going on. At the end, I don't know. Like, have y'all been to Africa? The shit's still going on. It's going on in Europe. It's going on in Africa. It's going on in everywhere. Okay. Um, so I need us to officially acknowledge that yes, people did sell people. Okay, black people did sell black people, and that's on period. And they still selling black people till this day. It's happening in America. Did y'all not hear about that case that happened in Atlanta, where it was like dozens. I think that they sent the marshals in. Was it the marshals that they sent in? They had a case. It was, I think it was the marshals, the federal. They had to send federal people in because there were so many underage kids being trafficked. And the majority of those people in those photos, even though there were some white people, because they was from the hood, right? So I don't think no big old bad white man was coming into these black neighborhoods and stealing black women. Okay, there had to be some participation of black people, black men and black women. Period, and that's that. And there needs to be some accountability for that. And let me tell you something real quick. Okay, I don't give a damn how I if if I hear that a pimp done did something to a child or is just, you don't get no cookie from me, or I feel bad, or I don't give a damn about your feelings and emotions. Hello, these are children. What are we talking about here? No, you don't get no sad emotions or anything like that. What happened to you goes out the window. And I also want to let you know, just because you hear women speaking, there's boys that are being young boys being trafficked too, right? Um, so we do need to address this, and we need to stop pretending that Black people are not up for critique. Okay, the majority of these women on stage, I'm pretty sure they have been trafficked by people who look like them,
Correct.
and they were so and that's in proximity. Just like
I agree with that.
hold on, wait. If you go to a white neighborhood, right? And you heard about a traffic story, it's gonna be a white person. Guess what? Because it's proximity, right? So like this whole idea that like it's the Black man and Black, no, nobody give a fuck about that. We're way past that going forward. Okay, it's about children. It's about women and even some men who are being trafficked all over because it happens in the queer community too, right? And it needs to change immediately. I don't give a damn who's doing it. Okay, heads need to be blown the fuck off. Period. Okay, black, white, purple, or green women. If you participating in this, you're disgusting, and it needs to be that. It's no color to it. It's horrible. So let's revisit that. And I know you coming from it from a lawyer's point of view, and I know this probably was triggering for a lot of the victims up on stage, but I want to let y'all know that this man is a lawyer. So and you know there's always going to be two sides, always going to be two sides, and they're going to try to victimize people, and that's just how that works. But I just want to let you know, I'm from a neighborhood where if we find out that that's happening, no matter who you are, you fit to get, you know, I ain't gonna say that out of the stage. So yeah, thank you for sharing your stories. I don't give a fuck about what a pimp went through, okay, or what somebody who's abusing. I don't want to hear your story, especially when it comes down to trafficking children. That's non-valid to me. I mean, no child can make a decision to an adult to be trafficked. That's unacceptable. You think that they asking the pimp is giving permission slips to the parents and saying, go have your mom sign this, and let her know I'm going to traffic you. That's not how it works. They steal these kids off the streets. Um, and even let's say, and I think that you're confusing sex worker, okay, a sex worker with somebody who's being trafficked, right? A sex worker is somebody who understands, like, and those people, let me tell you something, they know what they're doing, and they want to be in that type of industry, so they're fine. And even if they were sex workers and shit get real and they decide to go to the police because this man is becoming, or woman is becoming more controlling, then that's something different. Just because I say yes to something, and that doesn't mean that you get a full autonomy over somebody's body. That's slavery. Hello. So,
Hello?
sorry. In the
Hot mic, hot mic.
y'all, I was in my kitchen. I was in my kitchen, and I heard that shit. And God has told me to come back over here real quick. I had to say that. But yeah, let's keep it going. And I know a lot of people wanted to say something, so I'm gonna pass the mic over.
I just wanted to say that I am extremely appreciative of you guys coming here and telling your story. I'm here at work, so um, I can speak as much as I wanted to, but literally, your stories, even though that you guys kept the surface level, um, like it really brought tears to my eyes, and I really do commend you guys for having the courage to speak on your story. I'm just gonna keep it super short and sweet because I do have a client that I have to deal with, but I really do appreciate you guys, and I definitely do appreciate Trolls Nation. Shout out to T Rose and DJ Swag and Keezy, all of y'all. Definitely thank you for bringing me by. I love this space. And yeah, I really do appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Anybody else want to go ahead and
Yes, I
speak?
did.
Go ahead, Tatiana. Go ahead, Tatiana.
I'm sorry. I'm a little anxious. So, I just want to touch on the fact that, like, I love that Ion um, put put light and focus on the fact that there's a difference between being a sex worker and being trafficked. Skip me. Come back to me, because my son. I'm sorry, y'all.
Oh no, that was okay. You know, my
Oh,
kids talk in the background all the time.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
Well, if you're
talk
okay,
your talk.
okay. So, there's a big difference in those two things, and even even I'm sure there's women on this stage, and I know I heard some of the ladies' stories that, even at the consenting age of over the age of 18, just put it on for them. Just put it on for them. Um, with the consenting age doesn't mean that they're not being trafficked, because a lot of different tactics are put into grooming a victim of sex trafficking, no matter if they're over the age of 18. So if they're using certain tactics to keep them, locked in that cycle of needing them, because what traffickers do is they pay attention, they groom you, they see what needs you have, and they start meeting those needs. And then there's different types of pimps. There's Romeo pimps, there's gorilla pimps, there's all different types and different levels. So just because a woman is 18, and it might start off as, I just need a place to stay, that's to stay, and I need someone, he's helping me, he's putting me in this position. Now you feel as though you owe this man something. That's still a cycle of trafficking. If you are being sold for someone else's gain, that is trafficking. Period. Um, so I just wanted to say that, because I heard you say that, Jaye, and I understand that you're speaking from a lawyer's perspective, but that doesn't change the fact that they were victims of trafficking.
And I get your points. I respectfully disagree with that point that if you're selling yourself and and someone else is benefiting from you selling yourself, that's traffic. Period. I know because sex workers often have managers or people that they work with that gain from their sex work, which we've
Right.
just
That's
agreed
the
is
difference
not
between sex
trafficking.
working. Right.
And
That's the
so
difference.
that's why I say I disagree. Period. Just on the overall notion. Now, when it comes to it not being your choice, then and there's force or fear behind it, then yes, that is what I agree is
That's
But
what
hold
I
on, Jay.
said.
Let
trafficking.
me
That's what I
stop you
said.
right there.
The
I think
Yeah,
he's
tactics.
making
no,
a really
because
good
you're
point.
not
That's what I
understanding the
said.
difference. You're trying to force this like force thing onto it. There's a clear distinction between human trafficking and somebody who consents to it just because they do it for work. The clear distinction, just for anybody to understand in the simplest term, is that one consents and one doesn't. So honestly, Jay, most respect for you, but you
He's
have
saying
to
the
kill.
same thing.
Yeah, you got to kill that narrative
And
because
I
you're trying to paint a narrative like they're choosing to do that shit. No,
And, and
come on.
and and those people, let me just say this, and those people, they're very manipulative.
Yeah.
They're really good. They can get into a lawyer's mind. Okay, they can let like an adult think that what they're doing is a right thing to do, especially if you're at a younger age. And they make sure to get the vulnerable. They don't go for people who are living a good life. If that's the case, why are you always going to the hood, and or you go to people in poverty neighborhoods, or you usually get women who don't have fathers? Why is it that you're preying on those types of people? If you could just pick anybody, right? And women just want this. Why don't you go up and why don't you go to them, like, them rich neighborhoods, and, and go get them girls, right? Because you know that there's consequences to that. So you go back into preying on, and it happens over there too. But them women, they come from families that will look for people and do some things, so it happens less. But like, we got to stop. Like, we're not talking about like sex work, and we're not talking about like the pimp industry. And then we also need to one day revisit pimp culture, because that shit was weird. Okay, even when you listen to the pimp culture songs in hip hop, and I don't want to make this about hip hop right now, but a lot of that shit was talking about underage girls. And okay, when you reread that lyrics, and it's just like, seems like she ready and all this other stuff, like that, she was not ready. She was a minor. Okay, no minor is ready for anything with no grown ass man. So when I revisit, and this is what scares me, right? Because we did a whole, I don't know if y'all this scared the shit out of me. When we did, like, when R. Kelly's case came out, I remember when we did a room, and I was so fucking sick. I swear to God, we lucky we wasn't having that panel in person, because I had people coming up on stage saying they remember back in the day when people like R. Kelly and all those artists would go to schools and
Yeah, I
hang
heard
up
that,
and
Ryan.
go. And I said, "Are you fucking kidding me? You an adult? And you telling me that you let a grown ass man be able to deal with those things? And then you look at going to New York and you see like, you know, how a lot of these people, men and women, like they prey on younger girls and younger boys. Like, no, there's something going on here. We need to revisit this because if we're trying to say that this is okay, there's something sick within a culture where we have all been mentally, because even when we was kids, we just like, oh, that was like normal. Like I remember like a lot of girls would see those things and it's just like, oh, just because I'm pretty and stuff, because but that's manipulation. It's not okay at all. Like no grown man should be, or no grown woman should be hitting on no child, or try to be no coerce no child. And that's even and let me tell you something. A mindset. You could be a grown ass adult and have a child mindset just because of shit that you've been through. So I know 32-year-olds who've been through some struggling shit and they act um just like a 5 year old. So, and people know that and they prey on those people. So, like, I don't even want to, like, because we're building, and I get like that there are people out there who they're sex workers. We get it. We get it. We know there's OnlyFans models. We get it because that's always the big argument. We're not talking about that. We're talking about right now the people who were taken away and chained up to beds. Okay, people who were like pimped and beat and slapped into sex work. People who were sorry, trigger warning, who were like used as drug mules. That is something totally different. Like something totally different than what you're talking about. And like I want to say that them pimps that be talking to you, they be playing you too. Because they use that same manipulation that they play up on them young girls or young boys, because they do to boys too. They use it on their lawyers too to make them think it's innocent because they're narcissists. Okay. They've been, and you're right. I agree with you, Jay. They are raised in that culture. So yeah, you're right. We have to start talking to young boys and young girls about consent, because guess what? It is ingrained in people's heads that like this is something that's normal and it's okay, especially when you see it on TV. We have artists that are talking about, you know, sipping on pip juice and all this stuff. That what? Like hello? Then you can't tell me that's not. It's in the music. It's normalized in the music. That's not normal. Okay. If your daughter was to come to you and tell you that a grown man was trying to do that to them, you would have a motherfucking fit. You would go ballistic. But then imagine I come to you and say, well, listen, you know, it's sex work. That's the culture. That's what we do. You will blow my motherfucking head off. So please give the same grace to other people that you would give to your daughter. And if you die, like, please don't have no daughters, please, or sons, or any children at all, because
I would like to
this get
follow up when
crazy.
you finish.
I'm sorry, I'm done. Go
All right,
ahead.
hold on.
No, I
Okay,
wanted to follow up when you finish.
okay. Hey, Queen, I got you. Give me 1 second. I
Okay,
just want
Reggie.
to reset the room. Welcome to Trolls Nation. If you guys are new to the room, please troll up top, follow the greenhouse, and follow your moderators right now. We are bringing awareness to national slavery and human trafficking. We are building with each other. We're having a great conversation. Thank you to all the warriors in the room that shared their stories. Thank you to everybody that chimed in. Ayana, I appreciate you. Tink, Tatiana, everybody, I appreciate you. So right now we're building and coming to some understanding. So we're gonna get back to the conversation. Queen is on you.
Ayan, you said it so well. I mean, you hit on so many points that I was gonna hit on. You took words out of my mouth. But to the lawyer, I just wanted to say that um, these girls to me, I understand that you have your opinion and you have a job, but these girls just got through pouring their hearts out, saying how they were actually, sex trafficked, they were beaten, and they were, they had to do this. They had no, until they were able to get in touch with other people to get out of this. And I don't think that that's a good correlation to say because somebody went out to make money and he was sitting at home babysitting and she didn't meet the quota, and so now she's going to tell and you defended it. I just, and even if that was the case, a woman still have the right to, when she wants out and she want to stop, she got that right to want to stop. I don't care what it is. If she didn't make that quota that day and she wanted to, she wanted not to sex to have do that anymore, then she had that right to go to the police, to where we pay our tax dollars at, and get help to stop. So like I say again, with all due respect to you, but in that second, in that moment, I feel like you were victim shaming, and I just didn't agree with you, my brother. And it has nothing to do with whether he's black, white. When you went on the whole rant about black men, that I just don't agree with you, my brother.
Well,
Hey,
the black man is always
go
gonna
ahead.
be the sacrifice at the lower totem, but the higher ups and the higher echelons will always use the foot soldiers, the grunts, as the sacrificial lambs. That's all I gotta say.
Oh shit.
Do y'all not
Oh
know
man,
that there's more?
what
Hold
is?
on, wait,
No,
because we're
no,
gonna
hold on.
move
What
on
is?
from this. There are more.
Here
Yeah.
we
There are
go.
more. Please, y'all, don't come with this narrative because there's more white men going to jail for this shit than black people. So stop. Y'all have to stop saying that shit, okay? And if when y'all see the shit in y'all neighborhoods, just check it so that it don't have to go to police, okay? The majority of the black women or children don't even call it out, okay? And by the time they call it out, it's too late. So the black men are not going to jail for trafficking. Je, who is a lawyer, just told you that. Just told you that in the cases that even like a black woman or a black or people like they protecting people that they go through that they not go to jail for it. So this whole idea that it's a sacrifice of the black man, nobody, those people is not thinking about what's going on in these neighborhoods because we not telling them because we're not having real serious discussion about what's happening. Okay, this is fairly new people starting to get arrested.
And I wanted to. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
ladies. I wanted to thank you. I forgot to say that. I wanted to thank you for your bravery, for coming on the stage, for bringing awareness, and for telling your stories. I salute you and I thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say shout out to y'all and shout out to the lady that shared your story, man. I'm always supportive of Yolanda whenever she open up her rooms. I come in with the badge and we go up and we always support her. I think one thing we forget in these scenarios is that sometimes if no one heard when the lawyer spoke, he instantly turned it around for the victim is now the suspect and the abuser becomes the victim. I think when we talk about these issues, my brother, it was more of a sense when you said that pimps need help because they was abused by women. And that just really gets to me because it's always when we come to these topics, it resorts to the woman, right? My brother, that is a grown man that is a pimp. If it was up to me, man, he don't get no help, put him in jail for the rest of his life, right? If in that matter, if that pimp was maybe 15 or 16, maybe we get that young man some help. But you talking about grown men pimping women and getting them help, and the first thing that we say, well, let's be honest here, he was a pimp. He was abused by a woman. I mean, we got to get off that narrative, man. We really do. We got to accept that as a grown person pimping or doing human trafficking against a minor, whether it's a woman or female, we tend to turn the abuser into the victim and the victim into the abuser. We got to stop that as well and not land my plane.
Yeah,
That's
I
probably
think you
speaking
made a
from.
great. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you speak, Jared. But just a little bit to add to that is that sometimes when these people, these warriors, these survivors are trying to come out and let people know that hey, this is what's going on with me. People seem to turn that left, that cheek and say, you know what? Well, let me talk to the other person and see what they said. No, believe me, look, I was something happened to me. You know what I'm saying? If I'm coming to you, then obviously something happened. You know what I'm saying? Believe me, help me. You know what I'm saying? Stop looking for, what I'm saying, the suspect story. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming to you because I trust you. I'm coming to you because I believe in you and I hope that you'll help me with this information. Go ahead, Jared.
Oh, thank you, Bishop. I mean, on a professional level, I understand this is what, if I'm saying it correctly, this is what he does. This is his mindset. He's on the phone. On a personal level, I know personally, I went to school to be a criminal defense lawyer, and then, I got older and I realized that's just not my person. Like when it comes to my personal life, the law doesn't apply. I'll just be quite honest. It doesn't. I mean, it applies, but I use it to benefit me, right? I mean, and so that's not a position I would take because I don't believe in that position personally. So I could never represent someone that I don't believe in the law more than I believe in people's individual rights. So I just couldn't do it. I respect him for doing that. Somebody's got to do that because a lot of times people are, we presume people are innocent until proven guilty. But I would assume anyone comes to me and tells me a story like this, I'm going to assume that person's guilty. Personally, I can't separate the two. I'm not capable of doing that. So, no, I applaud him for doing that work because somebody needs to do that. We need people like that. I couldn't personally do that. Um, and I'll just reiterate, I appreciate every woman and man I shared on the stage. I just to be able to express it and just let other people know. A lot of people don't even know this stuff's going on. Just to bring awareness. I just it's a hard thing to do. So I don't
If
know.
I could speak after
Thank you.
Jared.
I would just say thank you. Sorry. Yeah, my Bluetooth sucks. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, go ahead, Crook. It's on you, brother.
Hey, I'm really not trying to start nothing in the room, I promise. But there's something that's just been on my chest listening to everything that's going on, and nobody has touched it yet. And I'm really not trying to start an argument, not trying to get political. But I've met people from all over the world in my experience. I'm aware that individuals are abused mentally and physically, sometimes just based on their immigration status, and that are trapped in certain positions. You understand what I'm saying? For fear or repercussions from one thing or another. That is another that's another level of human trafficking. And I just put that out there just like that.
Yes, it's under the umbrella as well. You're correct.
Man, listen, this has been a great event, man. It's been dope. I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna wrap this up, man. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But I would like to appreciate all the warriors once again. Thank you, ladies, for coming through and telling your story. I know it was not easy, but it was, like I said, this event is something that needs to happen more than just today. This needs to happen every day to bring awareness to human trafficking and national slavery. I like to thank everybody for chiming in. Ayan, I appreciate you, brother, for coming in and expressing yourself and giving wisdom. Tink, I appreciate you for coming in and doing the same. JJ, I appreciate you, brother. Trails Nation, you know how I feel about this. I appreciate y'all. And everybody in the audience, I appreciate you guys for coming as well. Jaye, appreciate you, Jared. Crook, I appreciate you. Um, Today I wasn't going to it was hard for me to do this event today. I lost two family members within a 2 day span, and one of them was this morning. So it was kind of hard for me to come to grips to do this event. But you guys gave me the strength, man, to come in and to stand tall. And I guess I gained a couple of I gained y'all strength, man. If y'all can do it, I know I can do it. So I appreciate y'all. This was well needed. I don't know if I can express that enough, but thank you guys so much for coming through. This is Trolls Nation. If you haven't yet, join the house up top. Hit the greenhouse, man, and follow all the moderators. But once again, this was a beautiful event, and I couldn't find a better way to end this. So I'm gonna end it perfectly with a prayer from Pastor Johnson. Pastor Johnson, if you can end with a prayer, brother, that I would greatly appreciate it.
Oh shoot, T Rose support you, man,
Thank you, bro.
for sure. You know, I
Love
came
you.
a
Shout out
little
Izzy.
late,
Thank
man.
you.
It's
Thank
not
you.
easy to
Thank you.
do hold a space like this, man. Good job.
Yeah,
This
man.
but it's
Thank you.
necessary.
Yeah,
It is. It's
it's
necessary for
Thank
sure.
hey,
you.
listen. This is the. I'm not gonna lie. This is probably the best event I ever seen. The greatest event I ever seen. So I appreciate y'all for making this the dopest thing in the world. Appreciate y'all. So Pastor Johnson, if you can end this off perfectly
I just
with a
really
prayer,
wanted to
brother, I
say
would gladly
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I didn't get a chance to speak, but I did
Oh,
want
I'm
to
sorry.
say thank
Sorry.
you.
Sorry.
No
Yeah, go
problem.
ahead.
I understand you want to end the room, and I understand. I just wanted to say thank you, especially to the sisters who spoke on bringing out that human trafficking is in foster care. And this is speaking from a mother who fought the state two unjust case where I self-represented myself. They're not only targeting children that don't have parents, they're targeting vulnerable women that they think that don't have a support system, and they can, and I've started a parent advocate to educate parents on how to get their kids back home. And it just touched my heart because I've been saying this for a long time. I've been sharing with people what the system and how it's human trafficking, and I've never heard it being spoken before. And I appreciate you sisters for telling your stories. And I'm just so thankful. And I just like to share to the room that I have my children. I fought for them, and the system did not win.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Good. Thank you
Wow.
for that.
That's
That
Hey,
was
powerful.
T
amazing.
Rose, I just wanted to
Yes.
say to
Absolutely.
you, I appreciate the room, bro. I came in a little late. I've been running errands, but I did tell you my wife she was gonna be sitting in and listening. You know what I'm saying? And she was down in the good listening. That's what reminded me about the room. She didn't want to really come up and speak too much because it kind of got a touch and listening to the other people talk and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But you know, she was in that life at one point in time, and now she's not. You know, and yeah, bro. Good job, bro. For
Thank you,
real.
Mrs. Big
Cause,
Snow.
Thank
cause
you.
it,
Thank
it
you.
touched
Thank
it
Thank
you.
you,
touched
Miss
it,
Snow.
touched her,
Um,
bro. You know what I'm saying? So anything that touched her, bro, it touched me. So good job on that shit, bro. For real.
no, I definitely appreciate. I like once again, all gratitude and appreciation goes out to y'all because this would never been possible if y'all didn't agree to speak or agree to even be here. So thank you to y'all, Pastor Johnson. Before I pass to you, brother, I do want to say one thing before I forget. If you guys know anybody that might be going through this situation or you just want to pass on information, there is a human traffic hotline that they can reach at 1-888-373-7888. That's 1-888-373-7888. That is the human trafficking hotline. So I just want to put that information out there as well. Pastor Johnson, it's on you, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you, brother. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this space, and this is a very much needed conversation, and and this is a great space, and I mean, I'm listening to everything that's been said, and all of the women that have spoke, and it's like I'm really touched by the conversation, and this was a very much needed space, and I'll just say that. And brother, I'll be praying for you and your family. My condolences to you and your loss of your loved ones. I know what that's like too. So, brother, be encouraged. And if there's anything that you need me to do, just like you back channel me and send me in here into the room, by all means, back channel me, send me a message, send me an email or whatever. And I definitely would be glad to do whatever I can do for you. All right. And with that, let's go ahead and pray. Dear God, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. Father, we thank you for all of these brave women that have come today, that have spoke out about sex trafficking and sexual slavery, national slavery, Father. We just pray for this conversation to continue. And we pray, Lord, for their bravery that everyone spoke about on today. And not just the women, but the children and the men that have been affected by sex trafficking, that have been abused and been sold into slavery for sex trafficking. Father, we pray for all of those victims, Lord, for every single man, woman, and child that has been affected by this terrible, terrible situation. Lord, we pray for their grace. We pray for their mercy to be had by you, to be given to them, to bless them, continue to give them the strength and the courage to continue to tell their story, to continue to not be silent about this situation and this issue. Many people, Lord, don't even know about this situation that's going on right here in the United States, let alone other parts of the world. So, Father, we pray that they will continue to tell these stories, that they will continue to be brave, that they will continue to be encouraged. And, Father, we pray for help for every single victim that's been affected by this. And Father, we don't have all the answers on how we can stop it, but Lord, we pray that you will put in place the people who have the power and the ability to stop this type of thing from happening. Father, we pray for your grace, for your peace, and for your protection upon everybody in this room on tonight. We pray for everyone that spoke. We pray for those who wanted to speak but didn't get a chance to speak. Father, speak to them, bless them, and let them know that they are not alone and that you are with them. Bless, keep, cover, and guide every single one of us on tonight and keep us in your peace and in your grace. And dear Lord, we will be so careful to give you all the honor, glory, and praise that is due only to you. We thank you now, Lord, and it's in Jesus Christ's name we do pray. Amen.
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 Amen. Listen. So with that being
Amen.
said, With that being said, I would like to thank everybody, all the warriors, and everybody for giving me strength, and most importantly, giving each other strength to come up on this platform and make this an exceptional, a great event. I appreciate y'all. With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and end it on that note. Thank y'all for coming to Trolls Nation.
Thank you for holding the
Shout
room.
out to y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job, T. Roll. Good job.
Good
Y'all
job,
Trolls
DJ
Nation.
Swag.
Let's go, y'all Trolls Nation. Let's get it.
Trolls
Whoop,
Nation.
whoop, whoop.
Whoop whoop.